Like to call the meeting to order. Town of Southbridge, Joint Education and Human Services Subcommittee / Town Council meeting. It's Thursday, May 8th, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the Veterans Meeting Room. Just as a note, this is being recorded by audio and video. And Councilor Kelly is here sitting in. We'll get to that in roll call for Councilor Ortiz, who is running a little late. Agenda item number 1 is called to order. Agenda item number 2, roll call. Citizen Member Provost.
Present.
Citizen Member Figueroa is absent. Councilor Marchetti is excused. Councilor Ortiz is on his way. Councilor Montigny is present, and filling in Councilor Kelly? Present. So we have a quorum of 3. Agenda item number 3 is review, discuss the FY 2026 Southbridge School Department budget in the amount of $38,697,027.00. Entertain a motion to submit to Town Council as presented.
Motion.
Second.
All right. Mr. Manager, do you have anything to say
Yes,
first?
thank you. Thank you. We welcome the Southbridge Public Schools to the table today for this budget adoption. As you can see, the number presented tonight is the required net school spending. I just want to thank Bill in his new capacity as the receiver for Southbridge. Now, a week into the job, but prior to that, we have really forged over the last year and a half working with Bill and his team, a really good partnership of working together to resolve issues. And we, as you know, we brought the DPW, or the school facilities, working with DPW, work closely. HR has worked very closely, and we've been able to resolve a lot of issues in a really cooperative manner. And this budget is really that as well. We did quite a deep dive into our required contributions. And when we had issues, we worked cooperatively to resolve them through health insurance. We did a really good deep dive into our health insurance costs because everybody knows the tremendous increase in that. So we really did an audit on both sides, and thank the school because, we sent it over to them and really working together, worked through those numbers and made any adjustments that were required. Again, through this process, and in talking to Superintendent, now Receiver Metzger, or Bill, it's been great to talk about the future of the public schools and where we're going to go. And this budget, while it's the preliminary budget for the school department, I'm sure it's going to be open to change just like ours will throughout the year. We are working cooperatively with the new Senate budget numbers that come out, and Dean and I had taken a look at the new Senate, and we know that those numbers are going to change. So there may be some changes to net school spending, but it will all come out of whatever conference committee and the final adoption of the budget. But we are working cooperatively, so we look forward to working over the next year through the budget. I know, Councilor Montigny, you did request to see if it could be put into the Munis system. Historically, over the last number of years that we have been with the school department, that has not been the case, but through the next year, I'm sure that working together in this new era that we're transitioning to, those are certainly conversations that we'll have to make sure that budgets are transparent on both sides. And I know we will work cooperatively to that end. So looking back, we did a search on our side to see when the school budgets were actually put into Munis, and typically it was later after the start of the fiscal year. And just, there was not enough time to do that right now to have it for this budget iteration, but we will certainly work towards looking to see what our budget presentations will be for the next year. Again, we don't have say over that. Our charter is very clear. The format for the town is prescribed by the town council, and the school committee can send the budget in whatever form they wish, but I'm sure working with Bill and his team, we'll come up with a compromise to see how best we can present the budget for next year. So I'll turn that over. I know it's long-winded, but I just want to stress, it's been a pleasure to work with Bill and TJ and Matt, right? Matt, Don, everybody in this room that's here with the school side over the last year together. So I know we're turning the page, and we look forward to this upcoming year. So I'll turn it over to the school.
Yeah, and just to touch upon that, I just want everybody to know at home, like the school department did provide the expected, amount for those budgets. It's just kind of a little jumbled and just not as organized as Munis. But they did provide all of the numbers we're looking for. They're just kind of out of order, out of piece. But anyway, over to you, Mr. Metzger. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Mr. Manager, for your kind words. I agree. We've talked a lot in the last few weeks about forging a path together forward. I'm encouraged by the work we've done to date over my last couple of years with the school department and in my new capacity here. I want to introduce some members of my team. Down at the end is TJ Plant. TJ is with Open Architects, who does provide some consulting, a lot of consulting services around finance for us currently. TJ was a longtime CFO in the city of Springfield. And we go way back. We both worked in the state legislature together a very long time ago. Matt Robidoux is a member of the school department staff. He is stepping into the role of interim business manager and finance director. Matt previously worked for the Auditor of the Commonwealth and most recently in the audit department of the Department of Ed. He's been a great addition, and we look forward to his continued contributions. Matt is going to jump in partway through the presentation to talk about some of the numbers with you. And of course, we have the chairman of the school committee, Andrew Murch, with us. Before I got into my presentation, Mr. Chairman, is there anything you wanted to say?
Yes. I commend Bill and his team for putting together a very good budget and then working, communicating with us in the communications with the town side and keeping us up to date. He kept the school committee very informed and did a phenomenal job putting this together for everybody. This was also voted unanimously in support by the school committee in our March 11th meeting after the public hearing. And we also have school committee vice chair Carla, Brittany, and Miss Norma here, and Miss Martina, and Juan, our DESI representative, is also here this evening.
Okay, great. I will begin, and I'll start before getting into the presentation by saying, Mr. Chairman, I agree that we could improve the process for creating the budget blueprint and utilizing some of the budget build features in Munis. TJ will speak to that a little bit later on, but okay. I think you find we're in agreement there.
Sure.
So I've been on the job for 8 days, 2 of which were Saturday and Sunday. So I'm gonna go through some materials that were produced in cooperation with Dr. Villar, the former receiver. I'm going to talk about some of the highlights of the school department, and then Matt will talk the numbers with you. And of course, we're open to any and all questions at the conclusion. Before I start, a little bit about me. I've been with the school system 3.5 years now. I came from the Munson Public Schools, where I served as principal of the high school for a number of years. I was an assistant principal in the Southwick Tolland Regional School District, and I was a English and history teacher a long time ago, starting to feel like a long time ago. And I subscribe to the belief that we should put kids first and we should strive for excellence in the school system. And we're working very hard to do those things every day. So how has enrollment changed? The funding is determined in part on our enrollment figures. So we did see a decline in enrollment, as many places did, especially in the 4 western counties where I'm from of Massachusetts over the last decade. Those numbers have stabilized since 2022, and we're around 1,850 or so students per year. Our biggest cost, it's no secret, is staff. The proposed budget does include some new positions to account for an increase in enrollment, particularly at the Eastford Road School. At Eastford Road, we're going to open up a new kindergarten classroom. We're going to open up a new grade 1 classroom. We're going to hire 4 additional special ed educational assistants and a special education teacher. At the high school, we're going to hire an additional foreign language teacher for the dual language program. This will be, the next year will be the first year that the dual language program, the students are going to move into the high school grades, so we need to staff accordingly, and an additional special education teacher. And at the West Street School, we are going to hire an additional dean of students That is coming from within. It's a longtime member of the staff at West Street. I'm not going to say too much more because we need to finalize some details, but we do have a verbal agreement in place, and we're very excited to have her join us from the ranks of the classroom. We got about 400 full-time staff, and I think it's important for the committee to understand and for the people at home and the public to understand that 90%, the overwhelming majority of our staff are in our schools, right? And we do have people rostered at central office, myself being one of them, and many of us are in the schools on a day-to-day basis. We really try and divert our resources to teaching and learning, to the students and to performance. I won't go through all of the numbers in the table, but we dedicate a substantial number of resources and staff positions to supporting school climate, culture, and student learning. I'm happy to send a copy of the presentation.
Oh,
to
thank
also,
you. I
Mr.
appreciate
Chairman.
it.
No problem. There's a saying in education that you have to take care of the Maslow before the Bloom. So you have to take care of the whole student so that they're available for learning, right? Students and teachers only succeed when they feel that it's a safe environment for learning, for teaching and learning, right? So we dedicate significant resources to making sure that our classrooms are free from the distractions that prevent teachers from teaching and prevent students from learning and accessing the curriculum. And to that point, we do have a lot of support staff speaking to the social emotional needs and at times the behavioral needs of our students. Every member of the committee has been welcomed into our schools this last year. I don't want to speak for them, but in our conversations, their reports have been largely positive. The classrooms, the hallways are orderly, the kids are engaged in the curriculum and the materials, and the teachers are spending time teaching students, not dealing with issues around classroom management, not dealing with the social emotional needs of their students. They're certainly mindful of those and apply that to their approach to the relationships they create with students, but we really want the teachers free for teaching and the students available for learning. Mental health, I have 4 school-age children of my own, as I'm sure many of you. I don't know that I would want to be a kid today. There's a lot going on in the world, and certainly in this post-pandemic era, I mean, we're not alone in the significant challenges we're facing in addressing some of the mental health problems and crises of many of our students and families. So again, we devote a significant amount of resources. We have 22 full-time employees engaged in social emotional well-being. We believe in restorative discipline practices, and we have assistance from the School Improvement Network. We focus a lot on a positive culture and climate for our students. We are annually an award-winning school district recognized by UConn for our positive behavioral intervention systems. We've really, I think in public education, changed the conversation around student management from punishment, right, to discipline, right? We want to educate the child. We want to understand the antecedents to the behavior. We want to address those. There is a consequence involved, but have them understand the part that they've played and empower them with the tools that they need to be successful in their classroom and as citizens, and in their interactions with both their peers, their teachers, and the rest of the adults in the system and with the community at large. Many of our teachers, through our climate surveys, which I'm happy to provide the chair and the committee with data on, do truly feel supported. We have Jill Lombardi here receiving an award from the Milken family. This is like the Oscars of teaching. It's quite a recognition. A very limited number of educators across the country receive it each year. And we were at the Board of Ed last week celebrating Jill. She thinks a part of her success is that we prioritize making sure that the classroom is a place where teachers are free to deliver curriculum and instruction and the kids are available to learn. Our staff retention data, there was a recent story in the Boston Globe. Districts with a lot of students from diverse ethnic and racial backgrounds and so-called majority districts struggle with teacher retention. It's a statewide issue. In the article, you'll actually see that an educator is quoted who had formerly worked in a charter school in Boston who left, came here to Southbridge and said, one of the key differences is they've really felt in their experience that we do have systems and structures in place that support teachers, kids, and students. Our retention is not where we'd like it to be, and it's a lagging indicator. We won't have this year's retention information until the beginning of school year next year, but it has come up from 2018 to this most recent school year by about 10 percentage points. That is below the state average, and we are working on it all the time. Diversity in our staff continues to grow year over year. That is a metric we are particularly proud of. I think we can always do more in our efforts to recruit and retain people from diverse backgrounds, to have the people in our buildings, the adults doing the work day to day, reflect the makeup of our student body. Talk a little bit about some student achievement. It's no secret that there's always work to do in achievement, and especially here in Southbridge, where we still are engaged in aggressive turnaround efforts. We are extremely proud of the positive results that we've gotten over the last few years, but we are not satisfied that we've reached our goals. Some highlights include the 4% increase in student growth in grade 5, 6% for science in grade 7, 6% in ELA, and 12% in mathematics. Grade 8, ELA is up 5%, science 8%, and grade 10 science has improved 3%. When you juxtapose how we're doing against comparable districts, we are above the state average and near the top in the communities that the department has designated through their metrics as comparable districts. We're doing great work. It's hard work and it's not done and we're not satisfied, but we are seeing real improvement. Again, across comparable districts, we are very competitive and near the top. We are ahead slightly of state average in student growth percentage in grades 3 through 8. English language arts at the middle school were number 4 out of 15 comparable districts, grades 7 and 8. We're number 2 in comparable districts. I'm extremely proud of the work that our teachers and our building-based administrative leadership have done in these areas.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Mr.
Thank you.
Council
Through you, Mr. Chairman. When you say growth, what does that mean? I mean, I look at the MCAS scores in Southbridge, and they seem to be well below the state averages. So I'm not really sure, what do you mean by growth?
So it's our own students' growth. So the MCAS takes a snapshot at different grade levels. Student growth percentage is how our students have improved over time.
So it's not a so it's not the raw scores compared with other districts. It's how we're comparing growth.
How our own students have grown,
So,
and the other districts are measuring how their own students have grown. So our growth is near the top of the comparable districts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so just to clarify, so you're saying like the 54 growth that the state is meeting for grade 8 is what's happening in Southbridge, but like in 10th grade where 90% of all students in 10th grade did not meet expectations statewide for MCAS, it's like 50% growth off the bottom to be more of the bottom.
I'm not sure I quite follow. We're measuring our own growth.
Yes.
Now, our
So,
growth
exactly.
doesn't put, like, if you look at the scores year to year, right? Obviously, our scores don't put us in the top of us across the state, but the growth of our students.
Right.
Right.
The scores are still at the bottom, but the growth is getting better
Correct.
from a large hole. It's just a smaller hole.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it is a whole. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not a secret. I mean, we are actively engaged in aggressive turnaround.
I just, I look at these other cities you've pulled, like near Boston, with populations like wildly higher than ours, and like you don't have Bartlett Webster, which is like almost a direct comparison to demographics in this area for the size of the district, but also for the, the demographics. I think it's compared to like only 40% white over there and 20% white over here. So like, it's hard for me to compare Southbridge to Chelsea, But I do appreciate these numbers. I wish it was something more relatable, but it's good.
Sure, and I think of it in terms of like the profiles of our students over a number of measures. Socioeconomic status, number of English language learners, percentage of special education students. These are the districts that our student profile is comparable to. I understand what you're saying about some of these municipalities are considerably larger, but the student profile is similar. Middle school math growth, again, number 1 out of 15 comparison districts for growth in grade 6, and in grade 7 and 8, 4th and 2nd. We're, to your point, there's a lot of work to do, but we are growing and we are trending in the right direction. We're doing a great job when juxtaposed against these comparable districts based on the student profile. So the middle school is definitely the place where the turnaround has taken hold most prolifically so far. And, as you can see, we are starting to trend in the right direction in terms of meeting targets. Which in 2018, obviously, we were much further down the growth chart. Questions about that before I turn it over to Mr. Robert?
Ari's arrived? Where is he at?
Right there in front of you.
You want to sit down or you want to stay up here? You can stay here, but technically you can't vote with the rules and regs. Just stick around. Awesome. Let it be known that Councilor Ortiz, 6:26 p.m. is here. Thank you.
So I'll briefly discuss the school funding model. Massachusetts calculates the amount of funding minimum that the school needs to operate. The first element is the number of students that were enrolled on October 1st. And the second element is the per pupil rate set by the state. This is differentiated by need.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, could you have him speak just a little louder?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yep, so I'll go into the per pupil rates and the need part in the next slide. These two pieces go together, and that gives us the minimum amount of funding that we need to operate the entire school system. The second part is how the floor is calculated, and then how much money is contributed by the state and by the town. It really depends on the community. The wealthier the community, the more money that the town puts forward. The less affluent the community, the less money they put, and the state puts more towards us. As you can see, this is chapter 78. So diving more into what the per pupil rate is and how it's calculated on the foundation budget, there's a base foundation rate that's based on the population that you serve. So in our district, we have kindergarten, elementary, middle school, and high school. We don't have the vocational side here, but there's a second factor that we take into consideration. That's the students that you serve with special education needs in district and out of district, your English learners at all levels, and the income in the income of the district as well. So the Student Opportunity Act is a more recent thing that the state has introduced. Previously, DESE would use a price deflator index. So that was based on the amount of inflation that was incurred in the prior year, which was capped at 4.5%. The Student Opportunity Act said that basically we need to serve underserved communities. So what they did is they took all those additional considerations, like the population that you serve, the amount of English learners, and the amount of special education in the district, and they increased the rate even more, providing further funding to the towns.
I'm going to step outside for just a few minutes, Councilor Kelly. Would you mind just if someone needs communication? I'll be back in just a few minutes. Continue, please.
So Southbridge receives about 77% of the foundation budget in state aid. For fiscal 26, that equates to $34.3 million approximately, which is a $2 million increase over the previous year. This year, the town is required to contribute about $10.1 million, which is almost $400,000 increase. We are requesting only the minimum amount of funding from the town and the state. How do we get there? There are things that are included in the foundation budget, charter tuition assessments and reimbursements, school choice tuition assessments, and state special education assessments, and Schedule 19 costs, which are the costs that the town have incurred to support the school system. So what's not included is the transportation costs and maintenance costs in excess of $100,000 per project. So this is how it all shakes out. The $44,392,000 is the foundation budget we have this year. The charter tuition assessment is $3.5 million. That's a reduction in that amount. The school choice tuition assessment is $1.6 million, another reduction. The special education assessment is about $78,000, yet another reduction. The Schedule 19 costs are about $6.7 million, which Town Manager John Joven has highlighted in his previous statement. Two things that we add are charter tuition reimbursements and transportation costs, putting us at a solid $38,697,027, which represents a $1.3 million increase over the prior year. So this is what that money goes to pay for. It is mostly people, buses, buildings, and special education out of district placements for students and students with disabilities. So the bulk of it is that salaries part, which is about $25 million, but that's fairly common for any state or local government. We have seen increases in out of district tuitions and transportation costs over the last year. Some of our buildings have had some issues and we've had some maintenance costs. Otherwise, it's all about level spending as the prior years. This year, here are our capital requests. I would not say that these numbers represent the priority for the school district. The biggest needs are roof repairs, driveway repairs, masonry repairs, some heating system repairs, and some replacement vehicles. Some of these building repairs represent some safety concerns, and the vehicles, some are fairly old and could use some replacement because they are used frequently, and unfortunately we have some roadways that are in great shape across the state. Any questions?
Guess not. Do you have one, Council Kelly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just looking at some of these numbers. Again, why, and maybe Manager Joanne can help here. We have a plow in the school budget.
Yes.
At 450 with a plow in the school budget. Why doesn't the DPW handle that?
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, please.
The school plows all their own facilities, and they also do assist the town. But their vehicles come out of the school budget, so they do use the plows quite frequently. They have all the school buildings, the parking lots and everything, so they take care of all their facilities with their plows and vehicle, and then they will clean some of the surrounding streets. We have a great partnership with Mark and his team, where they'll assist our DPW, but that has historically been throughout my whole tenure in town, that the school has their own vehicles with plows, they take care of it. We will go with like our front loaders and things like that, and sanders, and sand those areas, but the school department take care of their own areas.
Okay, I guess wouldn't it seem more efficient if just the DPW handled this?
We don't have the staff to do that, so that's why they clean all their parking lots. We don't have enough staff. We're fortunate that we actually have a partnership with the school department and the water department to assist the DPW when it comes to plowing operations.
Okay.
And when you look at I'll just touch on the capital, we've had conversations, there are a lot of priorities on this. We're looking at some existing capital accounts to repurpose the existing capital to do some of these repairs. Obviously, McMahon Field football lights would be the lowest priority. We would seek, I know Mark has been working with us to see if there's grant opportunities. We'll continue to explore that. That would be a very low priority, but we do have some masonry at the high school that's fallen off, that we're gated off. We would want to repair that. The oil lines, because we already addressed West Street School. And you look at the two student transport vans, we transport our own students. That is a priority. So, because otherwise you're outsourcing and you're paying more money. So we're looking at that.
I used to live in Texas. In Texas, the football lights would have been the priority.
That is true. That is true. You know, but we'll definitely, you know, so I think we have a good path. We are currently doing we work very closely with the school to replace the West Street elevator that we just approved the other night, working with them. So, and overall capital, because I'm sure the conversation can come on that big facilities study that had come out. We had discussed this previously. Now that we have the fire station project under contract, we're going to be moving to that. I have spoken to Chairman Lazo, who will work cooperatively with the school district to put together a committee to start the process of looking at that study and how we are going to address those needs, because that is so these would be the immediate concerns, and then we'd have to do a lot of long-range planning as to what we do with the other facilities, but I think we have a good path forward on that.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilor Rivas?
I just wanted to, do we have, I think we have an older copy in our budget book.
No, you should have both. You should have the new one and the old one.
We have two of the old ones.
I will, we can circle back on that, but yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I intentionally kept the proposed original budget and the new budget, so there was transparency of how we work together with them to make those
I
changes.
don't see some of those numbers on here, so I think
All right.
I might have gotten two of the same copy.
Out of the book? You pulled it out of the book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
That concludes the formal presentation. Open to questions.
Does anybody have any questions? To start somewhere.
I just want to say that, you know, we have worked very closely on this budget. We are at the minimum, and I know the path forward will be very cooperative in how Bill's vision of his leadership team and configuration goes forward. And so I recommend approval of the budget as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does anybody have anything for discussion? That's good.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. In going through this, and I understand I think you've done a good job as far as level funding is concerned, or level services rather. And I understand we're at the minimum budget for required by the state. But I just was looking at some of the salary breakout that and where the money was going. And I found that we had a lot of, we had a lot of administrative salaries that were very significant. I'm not a school professional. I grew up around schools. My mother was a teacher. She was on the school committee for many, many years in my town, in the town I grew up in. My wife is a former guidance counselor, retired guidance counselor. So, and my daughter's a teacher. So I grew up around it. I've been around it virtually all my life. And so I don't pretend to know what goes into a school, but there were things like chief of staff. I believe the salary there was $150,000. To me, that's 2 teachers, all right, that we could hire with that salary. And why do we need a chief of staff? Because isn't that what the superintendent's role is? To be the head of the school department. We had other roles in there, director of curriculum, but yet that was outside of the school buildings themselves. I mean, we have a principal, we have an assistant principal. Why do we need to have a director of curriculum? These are just questions that came into my mind when I was looking over some of these positions. And as you said, the students should be job one, and the more contact they have with teachers and teachers' aides, and people who are actually in contact with the students every day, the better off the students would be. At least that would be my theory. So I just don't understand why we have allocated so much money into some of these positions that I understand. I think in our district we definitely need the emotional support people, the guidance counselors, other people that perform those kind of functions. Certainly, I understand that, but there does seem to be a lot of people making 6-figure salaries that really, I just don't really know what the need is, and couldn't those jobs be incorporated into other in-school staff?
Sure.
Yeah, I understand the question, and it's a fair question to ask. So again, I'm a week on the job, I'm a week in the role, and I think any leader that's coming into an organization, part of the due diligence, right, is to make an assessment of the organization, right, and that is some of the work that I'll be engaged in over the course of the next year. Now, I will tell you, we do pay competitive salaries. We pay competitive teacher salaries also. We are always hiring teachers. We're always looking for them. And especially if you're in a so-called high-need area, we have very competitive salaries. We attract administrators from throughout New England, from larger urban centers. We have to keep our salaries competitive. In terms of some of the positions, like in the central office, so the chief of staff role, for example, I'm very proud to have Judy Maisonette here, who is now the assistant superintendent. I agree. I agree with the assessment on the role of chief of staff, and it's not a position that we're going to fill again. We have a couple other central office administrative positions that we're reducing, in this year through attrition. People are leaving and we're not replacing them. But I think we do pay competitive salaries, but we have very well qualified people in the positions. I could talk at great length about the importance of like a director of curriculum, and I think you would find that is a position that is in many, if not all, school districts in the Commonwealth in some iteration. But in this next year, I mean, everything is on the table. Part of the turnaround plan was to infuse additional monies, and some of our administrative positions are paid for through grant funding, to triage the problem and to stabilize the district. I think you will see as we take further steps closer to high achievement, to self-governance, that we will fade off of some administrative positions throughout the district.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else? Okay. I have a couple questions because I do echo a lot of what Councilor Kelly said, and I think you probably watched the meeting where I dived into, which thank you very much for the large 100-page scan. I appreciate you giving the transparency, and I understand that this is a budget created by Dr. Villar, and it seems like you have already just said that you've promoted within your chief of staff and you don't intend to have another chief of staff. And I just want to make sure everybody's clear that like the personalities behind these positions and salaries have nothing to do with what I believe with anybody's, if maybe there was one, he's no longer working here, and it's different. But there is a concern. Everybody's always talked about the concern of we have some great principals that you guys end up coaching up, and then they find their way into central office doing something that, like, doesn't best utilize them. There's a couple that I could name that are extremely good principals that I used to work with that, like, these schools could have really used them, and now they're in central office doing things, doing jobs that just don't particularly exist in other districts, especially comparable districts. I mean, there's a lot of, like, director of elementary leadership. I've never heard of such a thing. I didn't think that you needed to pay $138,000 a year to lead, and then you have an elementary curriculum specialist making another $140,000, but you have your assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, which is the curriculum coordinator, really, at $152,000. I mean, these things start to pile up, and I appreciate you saying you're going to take a look at it. I appreciate you've already cut the chief of staff, which doesn't need to be that role, especially when you also have special assistant to the superintendent, $150,000. So before, when this was made, we had a superintendent around $250,000, with two $150,000 assistants and $150,000 chief of staff, which comes out to like $700,000 for his office, which I just think is absolutely crazy. And I just really hope that you continue to take a look at this, because for the people at home that don't understand, Southbridge Town Council has no jurisdiction over this budget whatsoever except the bottom line number. And this bottom line number has to be given to the school district if it meets minimum school expenditure. They could do whatever they want. They could buy 40 $1 million buildings if they wanted to, with the $40 million roughly. But it doesn't sit well with the taxpayers in this town to see. If you told me, because with this district, and again, I appreciate you mentioning a few times that this is not your budget, really. It's only been 8 days on the job. We've identified that, call it Dr. Villar, whoever, someone tried to reinvent the wheel here in Southbridge Central Office, because there's positions that just have no business being in a school district. And if you tell me that reinventing of the wheel was necessary, then you got to show me something more than 90% of all students in sophomore class do not meet expectations of the MCAS. Like, if you had showed me that we actually had more than less than 1% exceeding expectations and things like that when there's really close to zero, like, I would say, okay, I understand that you're paying, you know, a director of secondary education 155 grand a year, and you say you have 5 principals for 5 buildings, but there's also a principal, a special principal on special assignment for another 120 grand. Director of data accountability 91. I could just continue rattling off that this is not in the equation for success anywhere in Massachusetts. And it's certainly not succeeding here in Southbridge. And I feel the need to say publicly, because that's all we can do. I can't tell you what to do with the money. You have to get this money legally, but you have Mass General Law behind you. Not only can you do whatever you want with the money, you can rip up a collective bargaining agreement and fire anybody for anything they want that's protected in a teachers union, for example. I mean, there's just a wild amount of power being given to one person through the state, which you've only been here for a few days as interim, so it's nothing against you and nothing against any of the people on these positions, but it does not sit well with the taxpayers, and the taxpayers are who I work for. They hired me to do this job and all the other counselors. So if I come to this meeting and support this budget with no end date in sight, I'm assuming you don't have one from the state for an end date for receivership. Yeah, thank you. And you are not the state, so I understand that you don't have that. But I find it hard to vote my conscience and say that I approve as a town councilor of this budget. Especially when I know the students' education being delivered, growth in order to meet 90% not meeting expectations is not a stat that I would be showing off to everybody. I think it's kind of embarrassing. So personally, I can't support this budget because I know that the taxpayers are outraged. There's almost $5 million worth of waste. I understand that you could have 67% of your budget for salaries like another district would, but I think it's Councilor Kelly's point. Probably said it a little more eloquently than I did. It's just not making any sense. And I didn't know if you had a comment there, and you kind of let me vent, but at the same time, because I can't force you to delete any positions that make no sense, I appreciate that you've gotten rid of Chief of Staff, which could be an executive secretary, and it's great that you've moved somebody with skill up to assistant superintendent. So we don't need 3 assistant superintendents. You can deal with 2, which is more than enough, and then have an executive secretary of chief of staff. I'm glad you made that call. But do you have any comment on just the citizens of this town's property values through the floor, because receivership has failed this town miserably? The students' education being delivered is not equating to positive MCAS scores, and thank God they did away with the MCAS requirement. But if that's the marker that you've been shooting for, not you, but Southbridge, for all these years, it's failed. This is a terribly failed experiment, and the taxpayers are paying more taxes, like you said, with the affluent towns pay less taxes and things. This citizenship here in Southbridge is footing the bill for this, which reinvented the wheel, and the students are still at the bottom, and less and less enrollment every year. Understood, but it took a huge drop before COVID, again, long before you were here. So I just have to speak on behalf of the voters, and I have to personally vote no on this.
If I may.
Yes, Mr. Manager.
I respect your comments. At the end of the day, the town council will have to adopt this budget with the minimum net school spending. Okay, bottom line, we can appreciate all the factors that that decision is, and you can vote your conscience. At the end of the day, when it goes to town council, that bottom line number is the bottom line. There is no wiggle room. That is the line. That is the number that has to be voted by the Southbridge Town Council.
Right, and I'm sorry if I didn't make that.
So we can say all we want about the taxpayers, but at the end of the day, the town taxpayers are paying the minimum.
Understood. The
minimum that we have to.
Yes, I appreciate that, Mr. Manager. I thought I made that clear that the town council has to approve that money legally. But as a representative of this town, and as somebody on a subcommittee which makes recommendations, as the chairman of this subcommittee, I know my vote does not feel comfortable recommending this budget. Whether or not I go upstairs and approve it, like he says I have to do, well, maybe it's the flavor of the council to challenge that law and have the state of Massachusetts come in and dissect exactly what's going on here. with their brains instead of ours. But at the same regard, I just cannot support this at the subcommittee level. I cannot rubber stamp my Councilor Montigny recommends this budget. I do not. And I don't think that a lot of the taxpayers of this town would recommend it. And I think they would appreciate knowing that their subcommittee, if that's the flavor of the rest of the subcommittee, would not want to do that. But as a chairman, I can't. I can't support this budget. And I can't imagine many taxpayers would too. You're close, but there's just a huge administrative cut of positions that don't exist anywhere else that need to be giving direct aid to students. That's what this town needs. It's been 9 years under receivership, and I have tried to prevent receivership since I was in high school. And we knew it wouldn't work. It's failed miserably. And now, out of $79 million budget, we're at $5 million being wasted. Money that you guys deserve to have through the state of Massachusetts minimum school expenditure, but money that I believe through not your budget, you're misusing those funds, in my opinion. And that's what the taxpayers say to me, and I cannot go against my bosses, the taxpayers and the voters of this town. I have to vote no. And I appreciate everybody's explanation. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for the clarification. We have to vote yes upstairs, or we don't get other monies designated for this town for roads and other things and regular budget. That would come into jeopardy if the town council does not approve the budget. The manager is correct. Subcommittee is a recommending board, and my vote will be no. Does anybody have anything else? Did you have anything? Did you want to say?
Well, I'd like to respond.
Yes, please.
So, please remember, I also vote for the taxpayers, and I am a taxpayer.
Of Southbridge?
No, but of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Understood.
Where the overwhelming majority of the funding comes from for the school district.
Island got hired by Southbridge taxpayers.
I understand.
But thank you. That was my point. Okay.
I understand. As are, the members of my staff. Mr. Montigny, I've watched your comments. I understand. I've been in meetings. I understand and accept your position on receivership.
Yes.
Despite that, my hope is that we can work together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to earn the opportunity to lead the district in a post-receivership world. Do I know when that is? No, I don't. We're waiting for a new commissioner to be seated. I've never spoken to the man. I have no idea what his thoughts are in terms of a timeline for, this model of governance. I would suggest respectfully, that this is one of, I believe, 5 communities across the Commonwealth that are at the minimum net school spending level. I don't know that even objecting to that is going to advance your larger cause of wanting to demonstrate to the Commonwealth that the municipality is ready for governance of the school system again. I don't know that, but I would suggest that that may be a consideration. It's hard for me to hear that you don't think there's been any improvement. I think clearly data shows that there's been improvement since the Commonwealth took over the district in 2018. Is it the level of improvement that's satisfactory to anybody at this table? It's not. But, we have made some substantial gains. And, words have power, Mr. Chairman. Our staff also watch these meetings. And I hope that you support the work that the people are doing in the schools, and that you understand that it is 400 individuals, give or take, that are extremely dedicated to improving the outcomes for the children of Southbridge. And it's hard for them to hear, you don't like receivership, I understand that. I hope you don't personalize it and dislike me.
I thought it was clear with that.
Right, but, I can't control that either, right? I understand your position, but, our staff, our teachers, get very nervous with the rhetoric that they hear from these chambers in terms of what will the impact potentially be when governance is returned to the municipality. So I urge you to consider that when making comments. I really do.
I do. I appreciate that.
I understand you're not satisfied with the administrative footprint or how we spend the money. You are right. It's the minimum expenditure. You're required to provide it, and we can spend it as we see fit, with restrictions. I'm going to challenge you a little bit on your comment that we could take the $40 million and buy $41 million properties. We have frameworks and guidelines that we have to follow, and that the department requires us basically to perform a self-audit every year.
Understood.
And a year report. Okay, well, I'm just,
Understood. A little sarcasm, my apologies.
it's okay. And, I understand you're frustrated, but please
Right.
keep in mind that our teachers do watch this too, a lot of whom are residents and taxpayers of the town of Southbridge.
I'm gonna stop you right there because I just need to make it very clear that I have never said anything about the teachers ever when talking about this. And if you actually dive deep into the history of this council has religiously praised the teachers of this district. I also just want to tell you specifically that this has nothing to do with personalities. I think I mentioned 5 times, maybe, definitely not you. I just highlighted that you had one of the best principals the elementary school ever had, working in central office now, doing a job that we don't need to do, when that person was one of the best principals I'd ever seen in the elementary school. So I'm praising your principals. I'm praising your ground level employees, the boots on the job. These positions are not necessary. The teachers are the only reason that this place stays afloat as a functioning district that cares about students. And the administrators that have been here for so long. Whether you move the chess pieces to central office or keep them in a principal position where they were actually making a difference, that's up to you. But nobody's scared of what we say because we don't have any authority, and nobody has said a word about teachers. I said at the last meeting that I spoke about this, that you have enough waste to hire double the amount of teachers and put 2 teachers in each classroom. So I don't know where you get off making an inference that I have said anything negative about teachers and do nothing but praise them, and worked closely with the one that got the award, who actually wrote my curriculum because I wasn't strong enough as a science teacher to do it. So for the public, total not true about teachers, and I have never heard a single counselor or school committee member say anything negative about our teachers. Without our teachers, you guys would look 10 times worse. And I hope that's clear from me about how much I appreciate the teachers of this district. It's the only people that gave me a chance as a kid. That's why I devoted the better part of the beginning of my adult career to working as a teacher in Southbridge Public Schools.
I want to wrap this up.
Mr. Manager, excuse me.
No,
this is
I want my comment. I want to just discuss, if I could. I understand, it's my recommendation. I want to talk, if I may.
You may talk.
Okay.
I don't think I'm wasting anybody's time here.
I didn't say waste time. I said I think we want to wrap it up because
I appreciate it.
That's all, because I understand your frustration and all that, and I just want to make sure we keep on the point.
Just so you know, this is where it's appropriate to recommend to the full council a yes or no, not challenge and then make the Department of Education question whether they should give us the school district back, because nobody's talking about what's actually going to happen up there. Everyone's actually just talking about what needs to happen up there. The council needs to vote yes, but as a recommending body, it's not. It doesn't. If any person on this subcommittee or any subcommittee feels they need to recommend a no vote on any budget here in this whole town, it doesn't reflect that the governance shouldn't be given back to the school system. That's like me saying that I don't want to do this, and you're telling these poor people here, Mr. Murch, and the 2 members here, Martina, you're telling them that they're not good enough to govern. This is. I'm out of this conversation that you're trying to pin, and I'm going to go back to my town manager, who has some constructive criticism. And continue to commend the school committee and the teachers in this district. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for clarifying these.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Again.
So just to be clear, your vote no is a vote no to the town manager's recommendation, not the school committee, not anyone else.
Yeah, but you didn't make this budget. You're recommending it because you have to present it to me legally by the charter. This isn't your budget, Jack.
Chairman, I'm responding to you.
Point of clarification, sorry I didn't say that first.
Okay. It's my recommendation, that's all I'm saying. My recommendation, based on meetings with my leadership team and my work with this receiver, to say, what is in your budget and how are we going to move our path forward? I get your frustration. I too am a taxpayer in the town of Southbridge. I too am a steward of the money for the town of Southbridge. I too am a father-in-law of a teacher in the school system who communicates very much about what she has seen in the school system and the changes in the leadership and how that has affected student performance. The discussions about how in the last 4 years of her tenure at the middle school has seen tremendous growth in her students and how they are now learning the path of what the governance of Southbridge is. Is there a lot of work to do? Absolutely. Are we frustrated with some of the salaries? Yes, we are, right? But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there is growth. When we look at those school districts, as a longtime school committee member as well, we've had these same conversations 10 years ago about student growth, about administration, about how you go year over year on growth, right? I want to continue the partnership that I have now with the school district and address those issues that we have in the school and look at leadership. I think we all take a critical look at our organizations when you have a fresh look and say, how can we be more efficient with the tools that we have? And at the end of the day, we all want what's best for our taxpayers and our students and our staff. So that is my point. And my point is just that this is my recommendation to you to state that we are going to fund the schools at the level and work together, school committee, town council, town manager, superintendent, receiver, over the next year with the budget that we have to continue to improve student performance. You go to a Quinsigamond Community College and located in the high school and the students that are being affected with that, right? That is part of the leadership that they have at the school district. And am I saying it's perfect? No. But you have leadership now working and saying, what is the path between students in the school, Quinsigamond Community College, how can we expand that program? To me, that's exciting when we sit there with those curriculum people and say, how can we work together to put pathways from the school district and have Ed Moore from the hospital at that same meeting and say, how can the hospital now partner with the schools and their curriculum department to enhance student performance and have kids engaged in school and lead the path? So I understand the frustration with the salaries and how we can better spend it. And I know working with this team that they have now, we will address those problems and come back to the town afterwards and say, this is the changes that we made. We have taken a look at the leadership and the cost and put more into student performance. I'm just asking, let's take this opportunity as that fresh start. I certainly respect your opinions. I'm just saying, as town manager, I would like support of the budget, but I respect your opinion. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I just reiterate this. Agenda item has nothing to do with my willingness to work with the school system in the future. I think it's pretty cut and dry. It's just an agenda item. I have one other question unrelated to this. The Yukon PBIS program that you get an award for every year for your behavior, that's the one where you were their first district when they first opened and you were their pilot district and they did all the work for free?
Yes.
Okay. Just
We
wanted
were the pilot district. I wasn't here
I know.
at its inception, so I can't speak to the funding mechanisms.
Understood.
It was, I will speak to that because I was involved.
Just wanted to make sure that was the same one we were talking about. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add? Yeah, Chairman of the School Committee, Mr. Murch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I just want to reiterate, or I want to support some of the slides this evening and part of Mr. Metzger's presentation, which I welcomed Mr. Metzger into his role when we were informed. We've been communicating on a proper basis, and I can say that his staff is, the staff at Southbridge Public School Central Office has been very open and transparent when communicating with us, which I think has been very helpful. All of our members have visited schools, and all of them can attest to that. The classroom environment, and anybody that's here that can correct me if I'm wrong, but the classroom environments visiting the schools was exactly what we want to see in our public education system. I personally have visited schools multiple times. My son's grown up in this district, So to see the changes from 2019 to now in the climate, especially at the middle school and I will say at the high school, my visit personally, I saw 0 cell phones in any classrooms on any student's desk at the middle high school, which I think is impressive and respect that the administration has gotten from the students in the enforcement of the technology policy and that the teachers are engaging their kids. I do understand, I have my own issues or my own opinions on some administration. I do, if you can always put any organization under a microscope and find positions that you can cut and save money, but that does not necessarily translate into the success that we need. Seeing the struggles that this district had when my son went into kindergarten, and to where we're at now, though I may not have understood necessarily the role of all the leaderships, I do understand from my industry if there's a shop that is having major issues, I'm one of a few people that get called in to go to a shop. We all have our own skill sets and we all break out with the staff and review those specific skill sets. So at least from my perspective, I can understand when there is a struggling organization where there's a ramp up in administration or management that has specific targeted focuses to focus on with the entirety of the staff. Obviously, the more successful an organization goes, typically those administrative positions fall to the wayside because their job is done. I think that the school committee and the staff and the teachers at Southbridge Public Schools hope to essentially obtain the success to make those positions irrelevant, so we can go back to what an organization and structure in our central office that is going to be streamlined and effective. But if the superintendent and receiver has found these to be necessary and effective, we supported this budget March 11th. We voted unanimously on it, knowing that there were these positions in there. So I would encourage a yes vote and vote in support. That's I'm here to advocate on the school committee's behalf and obviously for the students of Southbridge, one of which is my son. So I have a very high stake in this, and I do support the budget and will stand behind it and will continue to move forward, and the school committee will continue their hard work and dedication, and look forward to continued collaboration with the town council. And I do appreciate the chairman for allowing me to participate in this meeting. I think that is definitely I'm glad to see the school committee and the town council engaging proactively together, and I think this right here just in and of itself is also a giant step in the right direction. So, Mr. Chairman, I do thank you for allowing our presence here tonight.
Thank you for being here and so much a whole quorum of the school committee. I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes,
I would just say, I do believe reasonable minds can disagree.
of course.
I certainly intend, in this instance and never, to cause personal offense. We have some disagreements about some things, but I look forward to working together.
Thank you. Did anybody have anything left that they wanted to add to this on the table or up there? Councilor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Mr. Mesker, thank you for coming and talking to us tonight. Your presentation was enlightening. I appreciate your willingness to take a look at some of these positions in the future that we pointed out. I'm not in a position to tell you what how to run your business. My role here is simply to, when it gets up to council, to vote yea or nay. And when I do that, I just want to be totally informed and have my questions answered, which I think you've done a good job at tonight.
Thank you.
So I appreciate everything that's gone into this budget. This is a complicated, these school budgets, it's going to be very complicated. It's a complicated thing, a lot of moving parts. I'm glad to see the town manager working with the school department in putting this together. I'm not a voting member tonight. I'm just simply here as a counselor. But I just want to tell you that it's encouraging. I'm really excited going forward with the new leadership at the school department, and hopefully we can work all together towards the goal of returning control of schools to the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kelly, and thank you very much for being here. The transparency, TJ, Matt, it's been nice to be able to have the questions answered. I do echo the comments by Councilor Kelly. Anybody else have anything? No? I guess we're going to go to a roll call vote here. This is just to recommend or not recommend the FY 2026 Southbridge School Department budget in the amount of $38,697,027 to full council for their approval. Roll call vote. Councilor Ortiz.
No.
Citizen Member Provost.
Yes.
Councilor Montigny, no. That's 1 yes, 2 no. The recommendation will be made unfavorably up to council. Agenda number 4 is adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. You ready to adjourn?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.